Welcome back to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries. Tonight, we step into a tale many remember as simple childhood terror. Two children abandoned in the woods. A house made of sweets. A witch with an oven and hungry eyes. It sounds like fantasy designed to frighten children into obedience. Stay close, trust home, do not wander. But like many old stories, Hansel and Gretel may preserve memories far darker than gingerbread and rhyme. Beneath the sugar lies famine. Beneath the forest lies abandonment. Beneath the witch lies the oldest fear of all. That hunger can make monsters of ordinary people. Hansel and Gretel entered written history through the hands of Jacob Grimm and Wilhelm Grimm, whose 19th century collection fixed many European tales into forms we now recognize. But the brothers did not invent the story. They gathered versions already circulating across German-speaking lands and beyond, shaped by generations who had known scarcity firsthand. Their early editions were harsher than the softened versions told later. Parents were crueler. Desperation felt more real. Survival, not wonder, was the engine of the plot. To modern ears, the opening act can seem impossible. A mother persuades a father to lead his children into the forest and leave them there. Yet in pre-industrial Europe, famine was not rare tragedy but recurring threat. Failed harvests, harsh winters, war, disease, and rising grain prices could push families beyond breaking point. When food ran out, moral certainty often went with it. Historical records from medieval and early modern Europe describe abandoned children, orphan wandering, theft for bread, and communities overwhelmed by scarcity. In that context, Hansel and Gretel stops sounding like fantasy and begins sounding like memory transformed into story. The tale was especially resonant in German lands, where forests were vast, economically important, and psychologically charged. Woodland was both resource and danger. It gave timber, fuel, forage, and game. But it also concealed wolves, criminals, soldiers, and the possibility of getting lost forever. To be sent into the forest was not simply to be inconvenienced. It was to be expelled from the zone of human protection. In folklore, the forest often becomes the outer edge of law itself. And then there is the mother, or in later versions, the stepmother. This change matters. In some early tellings, the biological mother urges abandonment. Later retellings often replaced her with a stepmother. Much has happened in other fairy tales. Audiences tolerated wicked stepmothers more easily than cruel mothers. But the older form suggests something uncomfortable. The story originally dared to imagine parental love collapsing under pressure. Hunger does not politely preserve ideals. Hansel's pebbles and breadcrumbs are more than clever devices. They represent the human refusal to disappear quietly. The child creates a path back to safety using whatever is available. Stones endure, bread does not. That contrast feels almost symbolic in times of plenty. Food guides you home. In times of famine, even your breadcrumbs are consumed by birds. Nature itself offers no sympathy. Then comes the image everyone remembers, the house of bread, cake, and sugar. To modern audiences, it feels whimsical. To starving people, it would have felt obscene. A home made entirely of food is not childish nonsense. It is the dreamscape of the hungry. Starvation distorts imagination. Those deprived of food often obsess over abundance. In that sense, the candy house is not magic architecture. It is famine hallucination given narrative form. But abundance in old tales is rarely free. Inside waits the witch. The witch of Hansel and Gretel may reflect several overlapping fears. She is the dangerous stranger who lures the vulnerable. She is the isolated old woman living beyond village norms. She is hunger personified, fattening children for consumption. And she echoes the long European suspicion directed toward elderly women who lived alone, possessed herbal knowledge, or existed outside family structures. During the witch panics of the 16th and 17th centuries, thousands, many of them women, were accused, tortured, and killed across Europe. Folklore absorbed these anxieties readily. Yet the witch is also practical symbolism. She cages Hansel like livestock. She checks his finger to judge readiness. This is not random cruelty. It mirrors the brutal economics of famine, where bodies become units of survival. In the story's logic, the children face a world where they can be reduced to meat. Gretel's role is often underestimated. In many retellings, she is overshadowed by Hansel's cunning. But at the climax, it is Gretel who acts. She pushes the witch into the oven and shuts the door. This is not passive innocence rescued by chance. It is decisive violence committed in self-defense. Old fairy tales frequently allowed children more agency and hardness than modern sentimental versions. They survive because they must. The oven itself deserves attention. In peasant Europe, ovens were central domestic objects, sources of warmth, labor, bread, and life. Hansel and Gretel transforms that symbol into an instrument of death. Home technology becomes horror. Again, the tale twists the familiar into threat. What should feed you may consume you. After the witch dies, the children find jewels and treasure. This can feel abrupt, but folklore often rewards survival materially. Those who pass through death return with wealth, wisdom, or status. Yet symbolically, the treasure may mean something simpler: security. Enough resources that abandonment need never happen again. To starving listeners, jewels represented stored value, convertible into food and safety. When the children return home, the stepmother is usually dead, and the father repents. This tidy ending comforts later audiences, but it cannot erase what came before. The children now know their parents were capable of leaving them to die. Even in fairy tale logic, some knowledge cannot be fully undone. So what is Hansel and Gretel underneath the icing and rhyme? It is a famine story, a social collapse story, a story about what scarcity does to trust inside the family. It remembers that the most terrifying predators are not always supernatural beings in forests, but pressures that enter homes quietly. Empty cupboards, failed harvests, fear, and the arithmetic of survival. Each generation polished the edges. The starving cottage became a bedtime setting. The cannibal witch became costume material. The candy house became merchandise. But the bones of the tale remain visible if you look closely enough. Two children walk into the woods because the adults have failed. That sentence may be the true heart of Hansel and Gretel. And perhaps that is why the story still unsettles. Because long after wolves and witches faded, hunger did not, poverty did not, family breakdown did not. The forest simply changed shape. It became debt, neglect, systems that discard the vulnerable, roads with no breadcrumbs back. So when the little house glows in the dark among the trees, remember, it was never built from sweets alone. It was built from the dreams of the starving and the memories of those who were left behind. If you enjoyed tonight's journey into the darker roots of old tales, subscribe to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, where the stories you thought you knew are rarely the stories they truly were.